Wow, a lot going on in the world of professional wrestling. What's up, everybody? This is Fred Richani of TSC. AEW Dynamite, as I'm recording this, is going on right now. We have the Death Triangle versus the Best Friends. Why is that significant besides the fact that they're having a hell of a match? Well, it's because it is for the vacant Trios Tag Team titles. Yes, the six-man tag team titles have been vacated by the Elite, Kenny Omega, and the Young Bucks. And CM Punk has vacated the AEW World title. Actually, more accurately, in real life, all of these wrestlers involved have had their respective titles stripped following the fallout of, well, All Out. If you don't already know what the hell's been going on, let's just get right to it. First things first, six-man tag titles, at least at the time of recording this, are vacant. It's either going to go to the Best Friends or Death Triangle. And the AEW World titles vacated. There will be a World title tournament, a Tournament of Champions, which begins tonight, and it will culminate at Grand Slam. So here's the deal. So it's going to be Hangman versus Bryan Danielson tonight. Later on, it's going to be Sammy Guevara versus Darby Allin. The winners of those respective matches will go on to face Chris Jericho or Jon Moxley. And then the finals take place September 21st at AEW Dynamite Grand Slam in New York City. So a lot of craziness happening right now in terms of the employment statuses of CM Punk, of Ace Steel, of the Elite. Well, Tony Khan, while he did make these announcements tonight about the titles, he did not go into any details about why the titles were vacated other than the incidents following All Out. He just kind of said that, kept it vague. And he really didn't elaborate on, if people are suspended, if people are fired. And I think the reason is because there's a lot of legal issues that could stem from this. Now, you might be wondering, well, what the hell's going on? If you haven't been following the news, and it's been all over social media, but understandable if you're not on there. So, after AEW All Out 2022, CM Punk's the new world champion, great main event against Jon Moxley, confronted by MJF. They had what they call a media scrum, a post-fight press conference of sorts. So it's kind of in character, out of character. And CM Punk just essentially went scorched earth on all the executive vice presidents who allegedly leaked information about him preventing Scott Colton, a.k.a. Colt Cabana, from keeping his job at AEW. Even though technically he did keep his job, he was just re-signed to ROH. He went off on Hangman Adam Page, who allegedly went into business for himself in a promo that they had a few months back, where essentially Page vaguely, only known to people backstage and to Punk himself, was essentially calling him out for getting Colt Cabana reassigned. Now, if you don't know anything about Colt Cabana, I'm going to keep it real. From a purely professional sense at this stage of his career, the guy is like the fourth string quarterback that's never used, that's never active. But in totality, as far as his career goes, I believe he's one of the founders of Pro Wrestling Tees. He's a very close friend of the Young Bucks, who are executive vice presidents, or maybe they're not anymore. And so there's kind of been a schism there. CM Punk did a podcast with Colt Cabana back in the day, I believe around 2014, or not right after, but maybe about like 9-10 months after CM Punk walked out of WWE. Buried them, honestly, I think justifiably so. I mean, they medically misdiagnosed him. And then WWE bankrolled the lawsuit with their doctor, Dr. Aman, and, well, kind of drove a huge wedge, because it jacked up all the different bills that CM Punk had to pay. Apparently, it caused a schism between two longtime friends, because Punk was allegedly supposed to cover his medical bill, or legal bills, and then didn't, and vice versa. And it's just a whole mess. And Colt Cabana was employed in AEW before CM Punk. But again, let's keep it real. In this current stage of Colt Cabana's career, he is like a fourth string quarterback. He is, a seventh round pick, Mr. Irrelevant. Not hating on his wrestling ability. I don't know him personally, but it's just like, imagine there being a mutiny on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers because they cut Blaine Gabbert. Like, that would never happen, right? Or imagine like the guy who polishes the bench for Lionel Messi getting cut, and then there being a mutiny between Messi and whoever is polishing the bench. It makes no sense. But that's what happens when you put active wrestlers in power. Anyway, Punk went off. A lot of people didn't like what he said. Personally, I could have done without the forum. You know what I mean? That wasn't the forum to do it, but at the same time, he definitely seemed like he was fed up, to say the least. That doesn't necessarily mean that the things he said about the EVPs and people leaking info weren't true. The other stuff about Hangman Adam Page, He called him an empty-headed idiot. He said that, he's an idiot, doesn't take advice, whatever. That stuff's more conjecture. The stuff with Scott Colton, Colt Cabana, we weren't involved. We don't know. But it's not the first time we've heard about the EVPs kind of flexing their muscles the wrong way, allegedly. So some various issues with Cody Rhodes, who's now with WWE. You could make the argument Cody Rhodes might have ended up in WWE long-term anyway. And by the way, Death Triangle just won the 6-man tag team titles, the Trios titles. So congratulations to Death Triangle, that being Pac and the Lucha Brothers, which is pretty damn cool. So there's that. But yeah, whatever the case may be, CM Punk was very heated. And, he got out off the stage, or off the podium. Depending on whose report you believe, there are so many different reports. I'll give credit to Fightful, to Brian Last of the Wrestling News, and, of course, Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez for all doing their own respective forms of reporting. Just been a lot going on, a lot of moving parts. So depending on what version... And also, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right because we both follow each other on Twitter. Steven Muehlhausen, who I believe is with The Zone, have all been reporting various things. So shout out to them for their hard work. This has been crazy. A lot of he said, she said, and everything else. So here's what we know based on the facts, or the alleged facts we can piece together. Punk went off. He went to the locker room. He was with his trainer / best friend, Ace Steel's wife, who has a broken foot. She was watching his little dog, Larry. No, seriously, they were watching the little dog, Larry. And apparently, the Young Bucks, Nick and Matt Jackson, along with Kenny Omega, and I was personally told, I haven't heard any other accounts of this, but I was personally told by somebody who's kind of in the know. I'm not a reporter. I'm just telling you what I heard. They came with Brandon Cutler. I don't know if Brandon Cutler was trying to intimidate or whatever, if he was just trying to stop it. All I know is that it was 4 guys. So essentially, the scene of 3 to 4 guys, 3 of which are executive vice presidents, high-ranking employees of the company, apparently aggressively barged into CM Punk's locker room. Some say they banged the door. Other people say that they just walked in. Whatever the freaking case may be, they made the unwise choice of barging into his locker room in some capacity, okay? Whether he broke down the door or not, I don't know. Now, I'll preface this by saying I understand the human emotions. I understand that these guys are all adults here, and they all have pride, and they all have big egos, and they all see wrestling in a very specific way that is the polar opposite of the other, at least when it comes to Punk and the EVPs. However, listen, man, when you take that title of an executive vice president or a general manager of a team or a head coach or even an assistant coach, whatever, okay? You need to have some decorum. You need to have some responsibility. You have the right to be pissed off. And I know professional wrestling is a completely different animal from, say, where I work in advertising, okay? But with a lot of the executives I've worked for, more often than not, the good ones defuse the situation. They let cooler heads prevail. They don't go into, just right into somebody's face. Again, advertising very different from professional wrestling, although you'd be surprised at how heated it could get depending on the ad campaign. So they allegedly barged in, got into a confrontation, and depending on whose account you believe, I believe it was Matt Jackson who got in Punk's face, who I was told made the first move, as in just physically got in his face. CM Punk, I think it's unanimously been said he threw the first punch, but that doesn't necessarily mean he was the aggressor. You know what I'm saying? If somebody gets right in your face like this, like, I'm sorry, like, something's going to happen, okay? So that allegedly happened. Now, allegedly, again, depending on whose version you believe, Ace Steel, who is the real-life trainer, close friend of CM Punk, ran in and threw a chair at Nick Jackson, damn near knocking him out, right on his eye, and bit and pulled the hair of Kenny Omega. And this reportedly took up to 6 minutes to separate, with Sean Ross Sapp, and I'm paraphrasing his report here. I think it was like, one of his sources said it was partially a matter of life and death, which honestly, with tensions heated, with adrenaline rushing, I wouldn't be surprised. Now here's the thing. You got to understand something here. The key is that the Bucks and Kenny Omega are employees. Okay? Ace Steel is I believe, a backstage producer, what they used to call a road agent, employee. CM Punk, whether you think he was professional or unprofessional, I think everybody could argue whether what he said was right or wrong, unprofessional, is an independent contractor. So just think about the optics of 3 to 4 men, Brand Cutler, if you include him, all employees. I believe Brand Cutler's an employee too, because, the Bucks need a paid best friend. But in all seriousness, I kid. Okay, 4 employees confronting an angry, disgruntled, your top star who has helped you get higher ratings than ever before, who helped you draw record gates than before. I'm not excusing, condoning the behavior whatsoever, all right? But I'm just telling you as somebody who's also covered the NFL, and I'm not flexing when I say that. I'm just, in general, I've covered a lot of different sports over the last decade, plus I've been doing this. A lot of movies, a lot of TV. Fairly or unfairly, the rules are different for top guys. And while the Bucks, while Omega are top guys in the AEW galaxy, they're not that guy, right? There's Chris Jericho, there's Bryan Danielson, and then, of course, you got CM Punk. Now, they got separated. A lot of chaos has happened since then. I've been told by people that, and this isn't, riveting news. I'm sure everybody's read it from other sources. Like, there is a good chance that Warner Brothers Discovery could step in here and say, yo, we don't like this bad press. You got to get rid of somebody. Now, perhaps Tony could have smoothed it over. Tony Khan, that is. Perhaps Tony Khan could have said, hey, let me just suspend these guys, have them issue a public apology, whatever the case may be. But something's got to happen here. And, reportedly, according to Dave Meltzer, all involved in the fracas have been suspended. That does, for whatever reason, include Christopher Daniels, who's a backstage official. I believe one of the heads of talent relations, along with Pat Buck, who also works in talent relations now, have been suspended. And from my understanding, again, from the accounts that I heard, including one person who knows somebody, they were breaking up the fight. They weren't actually, getting involved in the melee. So I don't know if those guys are just fall guys or what's the deal here, but not a good look. Also, I believe Michael Nakazawa, who is a liaison, right-hand man of Kenny Omega backstage, also an employee, got suspended. So yeah, just crazy. And crazy to think that all these dudes got suspended are all employees except for CM Punk, who's legally an independent contractor. So it makes things complicated here, right? What happens now? On one hand, I'm seeing all these people say CM Punk was unprofessional. He shouldn't have said that, blah, blah, blah. I agree. That was not the forum. However, for all these people to say, oh, he's a locker room cancer, or it's all his fault, this and that, like, listen, man, if social media, if media scrums were around during the WCW, WWF Monday Night Wars, it'd probably be a hell of a lot worse than this. You'd probably have Scott Steiner beating somebody's ass. Like, come on. I'm not saying it was right. I'm not saying it was professional. But that doesn't mean that there aren't other issues backstage. Like, I've heard for years that if you're not part of the Bucks clique or part of Kenny's clique, it's not always good for you. We saw when Cody Rhodes left for WWE, a lot of his guys got shafted. We didn't see Brock Anderson anymore. We didn't see Shotty Lee Johnson anymore. Ricky Starks, I don't know what the hell that was on Sunday, right? So, remains to be seen what happens here. As for how AEW opened, well, they opened the show with a video package of MJF coming back. They did have Tony Khan, once again, as I mentioned earlier, announce that the Trios titles are vacated, now held by Death Triangle, who beat the Best Friends tonight. And the AEW World title will be on the line in a tournament, which culminates at Grand Slam. Keep in mind, it is the real world title this time, not the BS, stupid interim title, which, look, Tony's had a lot of good ideas. Taking the interim title idea from the UFC is a terrible idea, so I'm glad that he is rectifying that, at least, this time around on the men's side. So, MJF came out, cut a fake babyface promo, talking about how much he loved Buffalo, and said, hey, I'm not saying he talked about Moses part in the seas and everything else. He said, I'm not Moses, I'm better than him. And it was like a whole kind of sort of half-assed babyface promo. Moxley interrupted him, said, you're full of crap. MJF then healed up on the audience. And then MJF cut a promo talking about how, hey, the world title's just a stepping stone for me. for the bidding war of 2024 when his contract expires. What he said something about Triple H. My favorite wrestler said time to play the game. He brought up Nick Khan. Said the only Khan I'd want to work for is like Nick Khan. Oh, he brought up Cody Rhodes as well. Like, I don't know, man. Let me tell you something. I think this tournament and the 6-man tag match tonight definitely steps in the right direction for AEW. They're trying to put their best foot forward. Jon Moxley cut an amazing promo. I can't do it justice. Y'all got to go out of your way to check it out. But he talked about how the AEW World title means everything to him. It's the #1 title in professional wrestling. He said a belt's just a belt, but it's what you make of it. And he talked about like blood, sweat, tears, and how like it can help you overcome demons and everything else. And just an incredible promo. Talked about how like when you're winners want the ball when the game's on the line, and he wants to take that shot again, and this time he wants to take a shot at being a legend. And I'm just like, goose. It was such a great promo that even like Taz and Tony Schiavone were audibly like marking out like during this promo. It was incredible. So that was cool. And by the way, MJF like kind of walked away and didn't want to get involved with Moxley. So I think right now, short term, while it is chaotic for AEW, I do think they'll be okay. Long term, we'll see what happens. If they have to fire CM Punk, I don't know. They're going to need to really reheat Bryan Danielson. I think they're going to have to lean on Chris Jericho a little bit more, even though he's older now. And I do think it's Jon Moxley, their Iron Man, and I do think that they're going to have to really, really elevate somebody. MJF for sure. But I do think that they dropped the ball with Wardlow a few months back, and they really need to reheat him and make him kind of like their Goldberg. Same thing on the women's side. I think Jade Cargill needs to get the main title. I know she's not the best like in-ring worker. I don't think you need to be the best in-ring worker and have 5-star matches. I think you need to be an attraction and put asses in the seats. And I think Jade Cargill has that potential. So I would kind of make her your female Goldberg. Just have her run through everybody. If you want to have her have like 3-4 minute matches, fine. But make her a killer. Make her an attraction. She's fantastic. And yeah, just really lean in on these people that you see as stars. If you see Darby Allin as a pillar, work your ass off to make him a pillar right now. If you see Jungle Boy as a guy that can take you to the next level, push Jungle Boy right now. MJF, he's already halfway there or 3/4 there. Just do it. This is the time. No more slow burning. No more this. No more that. No, just do it. Just do it. Like enough already. There were times in TNA where they waited way too long to pull the trigger on AJ, way too long to pull the trigger on Joe, barely pulled the trigger on James Storm when he was hot. Like, this is the time. You need guys and girls who can get hot right now, who are new, who are fresh, who can potentially have crossover appeal. Some may flop, some may not, but it's a risk worth taking. So we will see what happens. But for the love of God, please, no more WWE references. No more WWE jokes. It was cool at first. It was edgy at first. But, and I'm not blaming MJF. He's doing great for the business of MJF. But I don't think it's a coincidence that after MJF cut an anti-AEW promo, I know you scripted to, but cut an anti-AEW promo, that things started going downhill. Between Hangman and Punk going at it, between Ricky Starks, and I know he was scripted to do it, but cutting a promo saying that, oh, they gave me this title as a noose and I turned it into a tie or something, like, yeah, enough burying the company. For such a wrestling historian, Tony Khan seems to make some mistakes that are very WCW-ish. Making active wrestlers booker, that's one thing, or having creative control, that's one thing. And then the other thing is making the company the enemy. When you're WWE, you can have a horrible authority storyline and survive and still make millions of dollars. They got revenue streams up the ass. AEW, not so much. So, yeah, I think if they get rid of CM Punk, it's a really bad move. Even if people don't like him or think he could be more classy or this or that, like, enough. He's your top guy. He's undoubtedly your top guy. If you could salvage him, make it happen. The Bucks, Kenny Omega, at the very least, I would strip them of their executive vice president title. Screw it. You shouldn't have active wrestlers as officials. And if you're going to have active wrestlers or semi-active wrestlers as officials, then you know what? You should probably give Jericho some power or give Christian some power. I don't know. Somebody, maybe not Jericho, he's still too involved in the mix, but like Christian. You know what I mean? Or William Regal's not an active wrestler, like William Regal or somebody like that, man. I think they need to do something like that. Now, if they end up losing the Bucks, or if the Bucks threaten to walk, or Kenny Omega threatens to walk, I mean, you do your best to salvage the situation, but it is what it is. If you're asking me who I think is more valuable to the company today, not in 2019, I think it's CM Punk. I think no matter what the internet says, I think it's CM Punk. And that's no disrespect to the Bucks and to Kenny Omega's contributions to the company. But hey, they gave Cody Rhodes a stiff kick in the ass and told him goodbye. So, such is life. But we'll see. Ideally, it'd be great if all involved get some punishment that does not involve termination, and they can come back and eventually make some freaking money off of this on screen. But we'll see. I don't know. I have a feeling unfortunately, I wouldn't be surprised if CM Punk is gone. Even if they even if they have like a fall guy, like if they have a fall guy like Ace Steel, like I could see CM Punk walking out and getting a buyout. I could see CM Punk saying, you know what? That's my guy. He ran in and defended me. His wife had a broken foot, and these guys were trying to pick a fight with me when I had my dog and my friend's wife in there, and he was defending me. Why am I going to come back? Right? So, we'll see what happens. Also, unconfirmed, but I've heard from little birdies that people in WWE have made inquiries for Punk, which, not really riveting news, they should. Now, if he has a torn tricep, which is what is reported by Dave Meltzer, he's going to be out for a while either way, but what is it? September? He could be realistically back for WrestleMania. But we'll see. Stranger things have happened. Also, one more thing of note before I go. Fightful reports that Malakai Black, a.k.a. Aleister Black, a.k.a. Tommy End, has requested his release and got it for mental health reasons. It is a conditional release, which means there's probably, conditions pertaining to his release, meaning he may not be wrestling for a while. All I want to say is thank you, Malakai, for overall a fantastic year in AEW, albeit one that I really feel like AEW never really capitalized on after the great Cody Rhodes feud. So, but hey, I hope he lands on his feet. I hope, first things first, that everything's okay with him at home and in his mind. And yeah, I'm assuming at some point down the road, we'll see Aleister Black again in WWE. But I want to hear from you. What do you think about all this AEW drama, all this AEW chaos? If you were Tony Khan, what the hell would you do? Let me know. And until next time, everybody, as always, enjoy the matches. Oof. Guys, calm down and make some freaking money together.